There we go. And joining us now, he is the manager of customer risk management for energy at Growmark. Scott Wilson's with us. Scott, great to catch up with you, man. How are you?
Good, good, Jesse. Thanks for having me on today.
I appreciate you joining the show here today, Scott. We have plenty to talk about when it comes to energy, fuel prices, etc. I think first off, obviously, we know the inflationary environment that we have been in here the last few months. We've seen a slight moderation in the inflation numbers, but you look at energy prices, you look at fuel, the costs for our growers and for consumers as well. But looking on the farm, I know this has been a bit of a stressor for our farmers and ranchers, just looking at that cost of diesel and gasoline, et cetera.
Yeah, for sure. You're correct with inflationary pressures and everything we've seen. It's just crazy to think about where prices have gone in the past 2 years. So, I mean, we kept having record highs this summer in the futures market. Distilled alone almost touched $6, which is just incredible to think about just in the futures market. So there's no basis component of that. So, yeah, and just a lot of supply concerns, things like that. So, and you talked about just with the inflation as well. If you look at the energy sector alone, it is by far outpacing every other component. Energy sector alone was up 32.9% with this last report that we saw year over year. So, and if you look at the individual components of that, fuel oil was up 75% and gasoline 44% year over year. So just incredible. Like you said, it's hard to make any money in this environment or just the input cost for these farmers. It's just incredible.
It is, and that's on not even mentioning things like our seed and our chemical and our fertilizer, et cetera, which have all gone higher as well. I mean, yeah, we've had good commodity prices, but still, um, the margin's still tighter when everything is higher in cost. Now, Scott, we think about looking at the energy picture heading into this fall harvest and into 23. I've started to hear from a lot of folks saying, all right, it might be time to lock in your energy needs for this fall, while either A, the prices are decent, or B, while it's available. I know some parts of the country we've had some questions about availability. So, thinking about this fall harvest and into 23, what are your thoughts and recommendations when it comes to A, locking in or not locking in your prices and getting your supply, and then B, obviously availability as we move into the fall?
Sure. Yeah. No, those are both great points or great questions. So, number one, for sure, I always think you need to try to mitigate some risk by locking in contracts for your fuel. We usually try to go out almost a year. So we're actually, with what we do, we're wrapping up most of it at the wholesale level, and probably most of our retail locations out to the end users have probably locked in fall. Hopefully, they have done that. So honestly, with the backwardation in the market, how it is, I would honestly have people start thinking about next fall harvest and then spring planting as well. Start thinking about locking in some contracts for that for sure in the coming weeks. And then also, like you said, there is some concern just with where we're currently sitting. Right now, we're about 25% below the 5-year average for our domestic distillates. So I have some concern if everybody kind of harvests at about the same time. Yeah, there's potential that we could have some outages or some allocations going on. So I would definitely, if you can, I know it's hard to pay higher prices. Thankfully, it has fallen quite a bit over the past month or so, but I would keep your tanks as full as possible. It's better to have it than it is to need it and not have it. So even if you have to pay a higher price for it, you need it. So I would definitely keep your tanks pretty full heading into harvest for sure.
Well, and I've heard as well on the availability side, it sounds like for the most part the Midwest and the main heart of the Corn Belt is okay. It's some of the eastern parts of the country, the East Coast, parts of the West Coast maybe. It's some of those outer lying regions where we're maybe hearing more about availability issues, but to at least the central, the main heart of the Corn Belt, although it still is an issue, it sounds like the Midwest is doing a little bit better on the availability side.
Yeah, Midwest is doing for pretty good. Yeah, for sure. A lot of the concern though too is as we get into harvest is what's going on with you're going to have some propane in there too. So it might not even be just a supply issue, but also just transportation. You got to have the trucks available to move diesel, propane, and then also some nitrogen as well. So there's going to be a lot of concern with some of that stuff too. So yes, concern for sure with supply. Like you said, not as bad in the Midwest potentially, but then how are we going to get it there as well?
Well, I'm glad you brought up propane because I know that's another hot topic.
Oh
Propane, natural
yeah.
gas prices have been crazy, Scott. We think
Mhm.
about a late planting season here in the US and wonder, what are we going to see this fall? Will we have to see a lot of drying of our crop, et cetera? So, when you think about propane and you look at this fall, what are your thoughts with that market right now?
Yeah, it's been an interesting year because if you look back at historicals, and I mean, typically, you see a really decent dip in about April, May, and then prices continue to move higher, through the into the fall winter season. But this year's been very different, obviously, with the situation in Russia and Ukraine, and the prices just going crazy everywhere across the energy markets. We definitely saw that happen to propane as well. We've seen them pull back about 30 cents on contracts for propane. So we're still about 40 cents above the 5-year average with that pullback. So we know propane prices are going to be more costly this year, obviously, than they've been in past years. And if we look at where we're currently sitting with our current builds, we're projecting hypothetically probably a total peak build of 74 to 84 million barrels. Which would be right around last year's numbers. Last year was 76 million. But if we look back at 3 of the past 5 years, we eclipsed 100 million. So we are, it's not a great spot where we're currently at. And I do have concern if we have some cold weather early on, or like you said, some big yields and we have to do some decent drying. I definitely don't think we're going to have enough, but infrastructure for propane is not fantastic either. So sometimes it takes a lot of time to get that up the pipeline to where we need it, or just to transport it as well. So I do have a little bit of concern with that, but nothing crazy. But definitely expect prices to be higher for sure this year, just because of where we're currently sitting with inventory levels.
Well, Scott, I should ask you as well before I let you go. What are you hearing from your customers as far as that crop condition, and what do you see it in your area? Any thoughts? What we're looking at? Obviously, we've been hearing the stories: drought and heat stress in the west.
Mm-hmm.
Decent in the east.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? What's kind of your take on what you're hearing across the country?
Yeah. So the kind of what the latest crop progress information. Everybody's projecting almost the entire state of Illinois is going to have about an average drying year. Parts of Iowa are going to be a little above average. The rest of the state's going to be about average, and then Wisconsin and Indiana are going to be right about average. I think we're going to have a decent drier season, like you said, with the late planting and everything this year. It's been very warm, but seems like we've had rain when we've needed it in the Midwest. So I think that's kind of balanced out the crops, and hopefully we have a drier season. We didn't have one at all last year, but I think that helped us last year because just where we were with inventory builds and stuff last year as well. Man, we got lucky that we did not have a huge drier season. So.
Well, Scott, fantastic stuff. And I'm sure if anyone needs to work on their energy needs, lock things in, have questions, contacting their local retailer is probably the best way to do that, isn't it?
Yes, for sure. Yep. I think everybody, and if they're not doing that, find somebody else that will, because I guarantee you there's retailers out there that'll do that for you. So for sure.
Well, and I know you can also learn more about your local retailers. Growmark.com is a great place to start. With
Yep.
that, Scott Wilson, Manager of Customer Risk Management for Energy at Growmark. We appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us here today, and we'll hopefully talk again soon.
Yep. Thanks, Jesse.